Alright, let's see if anybody actually comes. Because once somebody's here, can anybody tell me if my connection is just terrible? This is a food ASMR. Can anybody tell me if my connection sucks? Let me know if you can, like, see me or if I look terrible. Let me know. Hit me up. If my connection sucks. You okay, bro? Nop. Salute. Tight. Your connection's fine. Awesome. Rad. Hi everyone. I have a little bit of... That was loud. I have a little bit of cooking that I need to do. But I also wanted to talk and answer some of your questions about... Is that how you cut a bell pepper? I don't think so. Okay, this is how we're cutting a bell pepper. I wanted to answer some of your questions about the latest episode of News in a Rush. So a little bit of time ago, my morning, your evening, I made a request to all of you that you send in your questions about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or about News in a Rush in general, and I'm going to do my best to answer some of those while I do a little bit of cooking, actually. So I'm just cutting up some bell peppers, getting rid of the yucky parts of bell peppers. Because we're going to dip them in some hummus, which I think is very fitting for the theme of this episode. And everyone seemed to like the guacamole live stream that I did a little while ago. So let's answer some of your questions. This is a great question from Josh is Rushing. How do you stay unbiased on a subject like this? And the answer is really, honestly, I have a really hard time doing that. The first time that we covered the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I did it with the help of the bureau chief for the Jerusalem Bureau of the Associated Press, which was really, really helpful because the Associated Press has to stay, at least to a certain extent, unbiased. The AirPods are in, just by the way, so that you guys can hear me and so that the audio doesn't suck. The Associated Press has clients on every single side of the political spectrum, all the way from Al Jazeera to Fox News. So they have to be able to just present the facts, which is why it was really, really helpful to be able to work with the Associated Press. For this episode, I didn't work with the Associated Press because they were a little bit busy with a lot of conflict going on in Gaza right now. So I decided to do this one on my own, for better or for worse, which was still a struggle, but over the years, over this 1 year of shooting News in a Rush, I've learned a lot about how to find my own biases. And I even wrote an essay about it, which I think you can find, I think it's on my Tumblr. So that's how I work on staying unbiased. Let's look at another question. How long have you wanted to do this? So I shot my first Israeli-Palestinian conflict episode of News in a Rush almost exactly a year ago, because I was in the country, I was in the region exactly a year ago. So I loved that episode. It was one of the ones that I would show off to people when they would ask me, like, what do I do? What's your passion? And I was like, oh, I make News in a Rush. Here's an episode of it. And I would always show the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But deep down, I was always not completely happy with the way that episode turned out. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I believe, is the most complex geopolitical issue on the planet. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to explain it a little bit further. Which I did in this episode. It's 6 minutes long. You should go watch it. It's on @NewsInARush. And if you want to leave this live stream to go and watch that, I fully support that. I expect to see the viewer numbers going down. I'm really, really excited for everyone to get a chance to see this episode because it is one of my favorites. @CAD_wash asked me what is my favorite part of doing News in a Rush, and honestly, it's not the filming of it, which gives me a lot of stress, finding the right lighting, the right place to shoot. stresses me out a lot. But I just love getting the chance to write the episode. Somebody asked, how do you ask a question? You go to my story and you can send in a question there. There's a thingy on my story where you can do that. What was the most interesting part of doing News in a Rush? The writing has always been really, really fun for me. I'm able to go really in depth on a subject that I already know a little bit about, but I have the chance to explore every single side of the issue, maybe not just the side that I fall on. And sometimes it even changes my own mind or gives me a new perspective. I know when I started working on this first version of News in a Rush, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it certainly broadened my horizons on my opinion of the issue and my understanding of both sides of the issue, which I think is super important, and I hope that this episode of News in a Rush does that for you. Let's look at some other questions. Are we looking at this question? How will the Israeli-Palestinian conflict affect the U.S.? The details, please. That is a great question. That's a great question. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has less of a direct effect on the United States as much as it has a wider effect on geopolitics as a whole. So the United States, along with the majority of the European Union, Switzerland, Australia, New Zealand, and a couple of other countries that I'm neglecting to mention, but I have spoken about on at Real News in a Rush on Twitter. If you go to at Real News in a Rush on Twitter, you can kind of see a couple of corrections and a little bit of a discussion on what countries recognize and don't recognize the state of Palestine, which I think is something important to talk about, because that's really how it affects the United States. I don't know how to use this. Is a weird carrot peeler. Definitely gonna cut myself on this live stream. Tight. How should I? Okay, wait. Sorry, one moment. Yikes. I deserve a gold medal if I don't end up bleeding by the end of this live stream. I'm definitely doing this wrong. Yikes. So the United States being one of the admittedly small number of countries that doesn't recognize the state of Palestine has an effect on its global geopolitics. You can actually see it recently when, do people peel carrots? Actually though. Yeah, you have to. Otherwise they're just not as good? Question mark? Wait. Oh, I think I remembered got it. Yeah, this is tight. Dope. Recently, President Trump recognized the Golan Heights, which is one of the contested parts of Israel or Palestine, depending on your side of the issue, as a part of Israel, and it has attracted some condemnations from one side of the issue and a lot of praise from the other side of the issue. So that has an effect on American politics and kind of the generalized opinions of people within the United States. That was a really, really long answer to a kind of simple question. Sorry about that. Awesome. What am I doing? Right now I am peeling some carrots and bell peppers for us to dip into hummus. At Scarlet One Weasley asked, can you explain? I don't really understand anything. Well, Scarlet, let me tell you something. If you go to at News in a Rush on Instagram right now, there's this really cool, really good looking dude who can tell you all about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, from its history to the possible solutions to it. And you should go and watch it, please. It's a great IGTV video that I really, really highly recommend that everyone go and watch. Please go watch News in a Rush Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I want you to watch it, and I want you to see it, and I want you to like it. Thank you. Does this work? This doesn't. Nobody tell my mom I ate that piece. Yeah. You know what? Everyone's out here complaining about the AirPods, but you wouldn't be able to hear me chewing if it wasn't for these AirPods, so you're welcome. Somebody sent one question like 12 times, and it was a good question, but I'm not going to answer it on principle. First episode of News in a Rush came out, at GOCD Man asked, how long have you been doing News in a Rush? I did the first episode in February of 2018, so it's been about a year officially, but I've really, in practice, I did a little bit before that. I explained, what was the first? I talked about net neutrality in a minute on my Instagram account, on @JoshuaRush, which you can still find. That was in December of 2017. So I've been doing it, I mean, depending on your opinion of how long I've been doing it or what was the first real episode of News in a Rush, I've either been doing it for 14 months or 16 months, which is more commitment than I've ever had to anything before in my entire life, but it's also really something that's been a lot of fun for me. So that's what's up. That was a weird thing to say. Is News in a Rush on Twitter? Cafe Tyrus said that. Yes, we are at Real News in a Rush. It only provides links to the actual episodes because I really don't want to diversify too far from Instagram because I want to keep all the views in one place so that when I show it to people, they're like, wow, look at that view number. Did I? Okay, cool. Why did I choose Instagram as the place? Wow, that was a really long question. That's a great question. Wow, I want to answer that. I'm gonna just, pinning that bad boy, because that's a really, really great question. At Schrodinger Schumann asked me, do you think the solution would have been the same if Israel didn't have the military strength that it does now? No, not at all. I think that I kind of express some of that personal bias towards that opinion in the episode because I kind of give the 6-Day War a lot of time and a lot of discussion, but I think it's incredibly crucial to understanding why the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the way it is today. The Israelis mounted this massive invasion force and destroyed the Egyptian and Iraqi and Syrian and Jordanian air forces in like 4 days, and then just conquered a ton of land in the following days. I don't think that anything that we are looking at today would have been nearly the same if the 6-Day War hadn't gone the way that it did. And I think that really was one of the major turning points, as well as the Israeli victory in the 1948-1949 war. I also think that the cartoon resolutions of the Arab states who lost in the 6-Day War was also very crucial to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict's current state. Nobody cares, though. That's cool. I couldn't find the other question. Ballerina.joyjoy asked me if I filmed News in a Rush in one take, and unfortunately I do. Mostly it's out of stubbornness, but I'm also just kind of able to do it. For a long time, News in a Rush has had the transitions or the graphics actually going over what, like the actual video. This is one of the first episodes that doesn't actually have that, but I did still shoot this episode in one take, evidenced by the fact that it started pouring rain right in the middle of it. Which sucked. But I kept filming this episode. I shoot every episode in one take. How? Because I have a teleprompter right in front of me, and I make some mistakes, but I kind of correct them. This episode was really, really long, and I made 5 key mistakes. There might even be more mistakes that I made that I just didn't see, so I've tweeted out the mistakes that I've made and the corrections that need to be made based upon those mistakes. This is the worst that a carrot has ever been cut in human history. I'm so bad at this. Yeah. As Miley Cyrus once said, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has those days. Precious.ly. Why not? Actually, I'm not even going to answer that. Do you think you'll be doing News in a Rush for a long time? I sure hope so. News in a Rush has been really, really fun for me, and I've really, really enjoyed it. It takes a lot of time to produce, and especially lately, it's become a lot more stressful because of how much time that I have. I don't see me stopping anytime soon, though, and I really, really love making it. It's the highlight of my week when I sit down and start writing up a News in a Rush episode, and I'm like, gosh, what do I want to cover? What do I want to talk about? How do I want to talk about it? One of the big questions that's always plagued me is, do I want to consult an expert for this episode? That's a big carrot. Wow. That's a big boy. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun. Hi there, I'm Josh. It's like a microphone. Nope, I've already kind of answered that question, sorry. That's in Hebrew. Somebody just sent a message in Hebrew looking at more... Great question. I want to study the Israeli-Palestinian. It's one of the things that I want to study in college is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict itself, mainly because I believe that there is no real right or wrong answer to it, which is something so different than a lot of other things in global geopolitics. I think that every single side has got a reason for their opinion, and as much as I can see the reasoning for my family, my grandfather fought in the 6-Day War. As much as I can see the reasoning for one side, I'm also very, very acutely aware of the reasoning for the other. So I think that my understanding of the difficulties in solving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, those things just fascinate me. And so less than try and convince somebody to come over to my side, because I don't really have a side other than wanting Israel to continue to exist, mainly because I have family here. I just want to understand why they have that opinion, and it's so fascinating to me to listen to people's stories and the reason that they have their own political opinions. One of the things that I started News in a Rush for is to give unbiased accounts of what's happening in the news, because I really believe that kids and teenagers have got this really strong kind of moral compass. And if kids are given the facts, and we always on News in a Rush do our best to put facts first before bias and before opinions. So in doing that, I want to give everybody a chance to put their own facts first and learn about the issue. That was all carrot. And then let their own morals... That was not all carrot. That was all skin. Let their own morals drive their opinion on the issue. And I think that that's how we get a future of very, very well-educated and very understanding voters. Which is what I want. I want people to be smart when they go to the polls. Shalom, amigo. Hey, Farbstein. How you doing, Brandon? This one. I need to call someone when I finish this live stream. What's my favorite episode of News in a Rush? It came out today. It is called The Israeli-Palestinian Conflict Explained. It's 6 minutes long. I worked so freaking hard on it. And if you do not watch this, I will end you. I'm just kidding. If you don't watch it, it's fine. I'll just be really sad. And I am holding a knife right now, so I am not kidding. Anyway. Great question. Philia_Effendi asked a really great question that I don't think that I've ever perfectly explained in News in a Rush. So, 1800s, these people, we call them Zionists, started settling in a land that was controlled by the British. We call it Mandatory Palestine. It was controlled by what is today the United Kingdom, and it was actually, at the time, hang on, history, that was the Ottoman Empire. Then World War I happened, the Ottoman Empire fell, and became British Mandatory Palestine. British Mandatory Palestine had a bunch of Jews in it, had a bunch of Arabs in it, and eventually the British left, kind of telling the UN, you know, make a plan for all these Jews and all these Arabs who live there. The UN made a plan, the Jews liked it, the Arabs didn't, and then conflict. That's kind of how the whole thing started. My opinion. There's a lot of, sorry, I should make it clear, there's a lot of conflicting opinions on how the Israeli-Palestinian conflict started. I believe that it really is only about 100 years old. And actually, I should probably make a correction in News in a Rush, because some people believe that the conflict is like 2,000 years old, from when the Jews were first expelled from the Holy Land. Or some believe that it began with, like, the beginning of the Muslim religion, so it kind of really depends on how far back you want to go in history. I think that this current iteration of the conflict began there. This is a kind of loaded question. Depends on your definition of terrorist. Depends on your definition of Palestine. So this is a very long-winded answer. The thing that at Melina.__.Aniel is responding to, what do you think about, she asked, what do you think about, or they asked, what do you think about Palestine wanting control to be in Israel when they're part of a terrorist organization? She's referring to Hamas, which is an organization that has basically complete control of the Gaza Strip, which is a part of the Palestinian claimed land that Israel withdrew from, at least partially, in 2005, which was a big deal. Hamas is a recognized terrorist organization in a lot of countries, and it's not well liked, especially in Israel. So they have complete control, basically, over the Gaza Strip. And, yeah. So, it kind of depends. That's not a good explanation. I'm going to close out this live stream now. Thank you all for all your great questions. Thank you all for your great questions. I am hoping to see you all go and watch this brand new episode of News in a Rush. And I am going to, if this works, play the video right now. It worked. Oh, there's no audio? Does it work now? Alright, go watch the episode. This is what it looks like. Enjoy.